Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Vonage Gems, where we get to talk about all things Ruby and what you can build in Ruby that communicates with the world using the Vonage Communications APIs. Last week, the last time we met, actually, I should say, we spent a good amount of time talking about the latest version of Ruby, Ruby 3.0, and we didn't really spend a lot of time on the Vonage APIs because we just had a lot of fun going over all the new interesting things in the last major release of Ruby 3. Today, we're going to spend a bit of time together. Hello, Sue Dipto. Nice to see you. Today, we're going to spend a little time together. Our focus will be on the Number Insights API from Vonage and building something in Ruby to really take advantage and leverage and see what you can do with the Number Insight API. If you haven't used the Number Insight API yet, it's one of our most interesting APIs, I think. Some of the more popular ones might be, or the more well-used ones might be the SMS API or certainly the video API. But the Number Insight API actually gives you a lot of really interesting data. So if you look at what it says for the description of what it does, it says the Vonage's Number Insight API delivers real-time intelligence about the validity, reachability, and roaming status of a phone number and tells you how to format the number correctly in your application. That's actually really interesting data. Sudipto says he used a Number Insight API for standard insights on a Rails backend myself. Interesting results. Yeah, you really do get some interesting results. And by the way, the results you get back will differ depending on the country's legal system and like what they allow to be available for a phone number's data set. Each country has different regulations of what it publishes on the information on a number. And we'll get into that a little bit ourselves too. So the concept. So there's 3 levels of the API. Yes, ported numbers. So Sudipta mentioned that there were some issues with ported numbers. That's totally correct. You see some fascinating discussions on ported, and we'll see what ported looks like. So there's 3 types, 3 levels of this API. There's the basic API, the standard API, and the advanced API. The basic API, it tells you what country number belongs to, and you can use that to format the number correctly with the country code. The standard API will tell you if it's a landline or if it's a mobile number, right? So you could choose between, for let's say you're trying to figure out if you want to send a text message or want to give a phone call. And the advanced API actually tells you the risk that this number is, let's say, spam or fraudulent. Which is also fascinating. And this is a nice table here, by the way. It tells you the differences. So the basic API will give you the number format and origin. Starting with the standard API, you'll get that, plus the network type, the carrier and country. And if it's a US number, the caller name and type. The advanced API gives you all of those, plus whether it was ported or not, which goes back to Sudipto's point, whether it's ported or not, the validity of the number, the reachability, which is not available in the US, the roaming status, and the roaming carrier and country. Cool. So to get started, so he gives you some examples how to get up and running with it in JavaScript. We're going to do it in Ruby. And we're going to use this tutorial that I put together back in March of 2019. March 2019 feels like a very, very long time ago. And some of these things will have to be changed on the spot for us as we build it, which is great. This tutorial is called Getting Started with the Nexmo Number Insight API and Rails. The link for this tutorial, I'll share it in the comments. Sharing. That's the link for the tutorial. It's on our legacy blog. It's not yet ported to our new learn.vonage.com. So this is a direct link to it on the legacy blog. It will be on learn.vonage.com eventually once the team gets there. So what we're going to do for our time together is we're going to take this window. We're going to make it like that. And we're going to take this window and maybe make it like that. That sounds good. Maybe make it a little smaller. No, I don't want that. Okay, and we're gonna maybe make this a little less. And this, let's get it together. Okay, so what you see here is I initialized a basic Rails application totally empty. The only thing I've added to it is a .env file, which is an environment file where I've specified my API key and secret. I created a sample to show you what that looks like. And then after the equal sign would be the API key and API secret you get from the Vonage API dashboard. And I specify my database to be PostgreSQL. So that's all I've done so far in this application. And we're going to go through the steps here and follow together and build something and see what we get back. Should be fun, should be interesting. So you can see how old this is. Rails 5.2 and Ruby 2.53. So we'll see what differences we need to do as we build on the spot here together. So once we've created the new Rails application, the next thing the tutorial tells us to do is add these gems to our gem file. So already I see a change we need to do, right? So we go to the gem file. Let's find an open space. This looks good. Now, Nexmo is the legacy gem for the Vonage Ruby SDK, and the gem is actually called now Vonage, right? So we've added this. So Vonage is the gem that allows us, it's our SDK, allows us to communicate with APIs and abstracts a lot of that HTTP API calls for us through the SDK. And then .env Rails sort of integrates the .env functionality into Rails for us. So we've done that. We'll run bundle install and package these up into our application. You see that it's fetched Vonage 7.2.1, which uses sorbet to do a lot of static typing in the gem. And we've also has the Nexmo JWT gem, which is another modularized component that runs our JWT logic. We don't need JWTs for the Number Insight API, but it's there. And we've also added .env Rails as well. Okay, so now we've done that. Our first step we want to do is we want to create a controller. So it looks like the controller we're going to call is going to be called the Number Insights controller. So let's use the Rails generate controller, and we'll call it number. I think I can do this, right? Perfect. Great. Okay, so now we have a controller. If we go app controllers, Number Insight controller, there we go. We have a controller. We see that it created for us a controller, a views directory, and some test folder as well, right? So we have a controller now. Our controller is going to have an index and a show methods to correspond with two routes, a root level and a show route. So let's create empty methods for that. Okay, we're going to fill that in together. Does this make sense so far? I think that makes sense. If you have any questions at all, please don't feel to hesitate at all to raise them. Please share them. So now we have an index method and a show method in here. Now the create method, so index and show. The index and show will be the root, as we mentioned. The show will be what we show. The create action will receive the form data from the user and send it to our insight type method for processing. Okay, great. Thus, we're going to define the action as follows. So our create method will be like as follows. Insight type params, render show. Great. So the create method is going to run through this method that we've not yet created, passing in the parameters that are created in the form that the user fills out. And then we're actually going to render the show action, not the create action, right? So we're going to pass this over to the show class, the show action, sorry. Great. Let's now create an instance of the Vonage API. So we're going to create this as a private method, call it Vonage, not Nexmo, and we'll say client equals Vonage client.new. API key is env Vonage API key, and the API secret is env Vonage API secret. Okay, cool. So that gives us a instantiated and credentialed Vonage client to work with. Great. And then we want to create this insight type method. This all makes sense so far? If it doesn't, please let me know. As always, you can always interrupt me. Always welcome. Hope everyone's doing okay in the beginning of 2021. First Vonage Gems episode of 2021. Okay, so if the params come forward with a type parameter, right? If the type is we're basically checking, right? So we could do this as a case statement. We do it as a if else if. We could do it as case as well. So if it's basic, do something. Else if the params type is standard, do something else. Else if the params type equals advanced, do something else, and we'll have a catch-all with something else. Cool. Okay, so what do we want to, and at the end, we want to make an instance variable with the data that comes back to a hash. Okay, so what do we want to do? So if the params are basic, basically what we're doing is we're going to make an API call using this client we're going to make an API call using this client to the Number Insight API with either basic, standard, or advanced, right? In fact, let's actually do something different here. Cool. What this does, this little fancy pipe and equal, is that if this has already been instantiated, it saves it. It doesn't re-instantiate an instance every single time we call it if it's already been defined. We don't need to create a new instance every single time. We have one. Great. Okay. And we can use Vonage. Great. Okay, so if it's basic, so the data is going to equal Vonage.Number Insight .Basic, and the number is the params number. Cool. If it's standard, you see where I'm going with this, right? If it's standard, then it's Vonage Number Insight standard. Ooh, very complicated stuff here. Params again, the number. And if it's advanced, can you guess what it's going to be? It's going to be advanced. Vonage. Actually, we want to. Vonage dot. What did I say? Number Insight. Actually, sorry, it's not an instance variable. Initially. Advanced. Again, passing in the number from the parameters. And if it was neither of these, then what was passed in as a parameter was incorrect. So then we're going to let the user know that with a flash message that something happened here and it wasn't correct. Please try to submit form again. Something was wrong in the process. And redirect to Number Insights. Cool. We have that. So we have this method. So when the create action gets hit, it calls this method insight type, and then it passes the params to it, and it checks if the params is basic. Then it makes an API call to Vonage for a basic number insight call. If it's standard, it makes a standard number insight API call. And if it's advanced, it makes an advanced number insight API call, and then it passes that data to data, and the method at the end returns data in a hash. I think that's pretty good, pretty explanatory. So we have the methods here. We need a lot more to build out at this point. And just if you're joining us now, what we are building is a Rails app to take advantage and leverage the Number Insight API from Vonage, which, as we mentioned in the beginning, lets you get intelligence about the validity, reachability, and roaming status of a phone number, 3 different levels of API call: basic, standard, and advanced. And this neat little table here on the website, let me just share this link to this page here. This neat little table on this website shows you exactly what each level gives you back. So basic will only give you 1 data point, which is the number format, whether, with the international country code and the origin, and then standard gives you that plus a couple more things, and advanced gives you everything except be aware that US numbers only will give you back the caller name and type. Other countries, you will not get that back from it. Cool. Okay. So we have that method. We built it. It's exciting. We're moving forward. Everyone's pumped. Okay, then we want to create our routes. So if we go to our config file, config directory, go to our routes. Let's create some routes. Get type insights to the index. That's a get route. And then number insights show will go to the same controller, to the show method. And we have one more for the create method, which is a post route. New. So we created 3 routes for us. A get route, which is that we're going to call this like basically the base level of the application, the root level of number insights / number insights. And that goes to the index route, which just renders the index page. Then we have a get route to the show controller, number insights / show, which will be a place where we're going to put the data we get back from that API call. And then we have a post route, which is what will receive the form the user fills out with the phone number information that they want to get data on. And that goes to the create route in the controller. Cool. Here we have a section talking about adding your API credentials. We mentioned that already, that you want to add your API credentials to a .env file. So here's what it looks like, where you put on the other side your API key and your API secret to make it accessible. And then once we've done that, our next step is actually set up our views, which are pretty cool. So far, things tend to be going pretty well right now. We haven't run it yet, of course, so we never know what might happen. But so far, so good. So our views. So we want to add this. So we mentioned here that we have this. If all else fails, if it is none of these things, we want to flash a failure message. We need to create a space within our layout for that message, right? So if we go to our views, let's collapse that. Go to our views, and then layouts and application, and let's add this in there. So what we're doing here is right at the opening of the body tag, we're adding this, if there's a flash message, then share that flash message and put it out there. And then yield, of course, is standard sort of Rails syntax for now put the rest of the content that gets rendered, put it in the layout. But this creates a space on the top of the body of the web page for any sort of flash messages. In this case, the flash message would be, please try to submit the form again, something went wrong. And then we want to create the insight, the index view. So if we go to close layouts, in here, we're going to create a new file. We're going to call it index.html.erb. And this file is going to have a form. So this is very fancy front end, as in not very fancy front end at all, but it's front end that's the least efficient for us. We're going to call it the Vonage Number Insights with Rails. Cool. And we're going to create a form tag here. We're going to say that the post route is going to be what we defined in the routes. Number insights.new. Do, right? Okay. Just close it. And let's just copy and paste this because it's a lot to type. Fix all that. Okay, so we have in the form tag, we have a label for the phone number with a text field tag for a number. We have a radio button, 3 radio buttons where the user gets to choose whether it's a basic insight they're looking for in the number, standard or advanced, and then a submit tag to search for that number. Pretty straightforward form, not uber complicated. We next need to create our show view. So we're going to create another view index, another HTML file, ERB file. Call it show.html.erb. Number. Okay. Let's just make sure we can render everything at this point as well. So I think I need to exec rake db migrate. We don't have a database. That's fixable. Try again. Cool. Okay, bundle exec rails s. We're missing something. Let's make this a little bigger so I can see what it says. Webpack vision a file. Please run Rails Webpack install. Okay. Let's use Node version 12, not Node version 9. Let's try this again. They're installing Webpacker now. This will take a second. We don't really need it. It comes standard in new versions of Rails. I could have disabled it when I instantiated my new Rails app. I didn't do that, so I need to just run through this install script. It's fetching all the different node modules and installing them. It just takes a minute, put in the right config files. It's this point kind of like run-of-the-mill Rails stuff at the very beginning. Usually this happens immediately when you create a new Rails app, but I was running Node version 9, which is kind of, I need to fix that. It's a default in my terminal in VS Code. It needs at least Node version 12, so I just fixed that, and now it says Webpacker successfully installed. At this point, theoretically, this should now boot up. It looks like it is. Let's close this or move that over there. Let's see what happens. Localhost 3000, number insights. What's here? There is some syntax error. Unexpected end, unexpected do. Okay, let's take a look. What am I missing? Oh, I'm missing a parentheses. Let's try again. That looks like it worked. Again, it's not it's not fancy front end work, but it's there, right? Vonage number insight with Rails, ask you for your phone number, which type of insight you want, and a search. It's at this point not going to work yet, but at least we know it renders, which is very, very cool. Okay, so let's move that to the side. Let's stop the server. So we know that it's working. So far, so good. Very exciting. If you're joining us just now, just a brief moment where we're at, we are building a Rails app to leverage Vonage Number Insight API, which lets us get insights into the phone numbers that we're searching for. So things like the carrier, the network, whether the number was ported, if it's a US number, the caller's name, all kinds of interesting data on phone numbers, which is really cool. Okay, so we have that. Let's go back here. So now show. What we want to do is first we put out an H2 and then H3 with this what number we're looking at. I can type. Great. We close the H3. Then a table. We're going to create a table for this data. I don't do a lot of HTML, so I don't have the auto closes and stuff because I really don't write a lot of HTML normally. Okay, so we have a table row, and we want to print out some data. So data.each.do key value. Always end before I do anything else. Table header will be the key. That's the end of the table row. And then a new table row. Data.each.do key value. If the value dot class equals, and this is going to be changed as well to Vonage entity. And do a table data value to hash each do sub key sub value. A lot of nesting here. I probably could clean this up. Sub value. And the table data. We want an else statement here. Else statement, then just put the value. Okay, got it. Right. Okay. Because if the value class is this Vonage SDK class, which is the entity class from the SDK, then the data is going to come back in the form of a hash. If not, it's going to come back in the form of an object, not a hash. And if it's not that, then it's going to be already into a hash. That's essentially what we're trying to take into account there. So I think that's it for the show route, for the show view, which is great. And then I think we're ready to run it. Okay, so start it again. Is it running? It is running. Okay. So we can make an API call. Should we make an API call and see if we can get some data on a phone number? This is the fun part. Let's pick a random phone number. 1, which is the United States. I don't know. What's a good area code? 212, which is New York. 456-3232. I just totally made that up. I have no idea what that is. So basic. There's some data. Look at that. Amazing. So we see it was a successful API call. It was this is what it looks like in international. You put the 1 before it. That's the national format, right? That's how it looks like within the States. It's a US phone. Country name is United States of America, and the country prefix is 1. Fantastic. What if I want to do that same API call with a standard? Let's start there first. So now we see the same data as before, but now we see that, well, this cost me this many euro cents, and I still have 24 euros left in my API account. That's good to know. This phone number's current carrier is virtual level 3. Its original carrier was T-Mobile, and it was a ported phone number. We don't know if it's roaming or not. I just picked this number out of a hat. I have no connection to this number whatsoever. If we do an advanced search for the same number, same data as before, same information, a little less in my balance because I just used it again. It is a valid number, right? Whether it's reachable or not is not known. It was ported, and there was no IP warnings for that number. Let's use a different number, see what happens. If you have any numbers you want me to try, please let me know. Obviously, this is recorded and it's live, so take that into consideration. But let's pick a number in a different country. So that's the United States. Let's try a number in my home country in Israel. So pick a random country phone number. So that's the country code. 50 is the area code. 654-3434. I don't know if that's a number. I'm just making it up. Basic. Well, that looks like that's a real phone number. Great. We see similar data, except now we see this is the international format. This is the within the country format for the number, right? This is the country code, IL, The country code in ISO 3 format is ISR. Country prefix is 972. If I do that for standard, we get back now a little more data. We see that its current carrier is Pelephone. Its original carrier was Pelephone. It was not ported, and it is unknown whether it's roaming. Pelephone is a cell phone carrier, so it's a cell phone. 50 is a mobile area code. Advanced, same information. It was never ported. We don't get much more data back on that. If I chose now, let's say a landline number, so 02-873-4567. Same information, but this should be a landline now. Yep, and look at the data there. Original carrier, IL fixed, Israel, landline, Israel. Do advanced. Right, similar data. It's a valid number, right, which is important to know. What's like a landline in America? Is there like landline area codes? I don't even know. I think there are, right? But 212 used to be a landline. 619, I think it's San Diego, 546-7832. It's a Sprint phone number. It's fixed. It's a landline running on Sprint. So you see how it gets this. In Israel was IL fixed. Here it's US fixed. You can see the difference between a landline and a mobile number. So that's kind of what kind of data you get back from the Number Insight API. And it's relatively straightforward to build an app in Rails to give you back information. See here, you actually see a lot of that data coming back there, all in hash format. Status, the request ID, the international format number, national format number, country code, and also country code in ISO 3, country prefix, etc. It was originally current is a landline. It was originally a Sprint phone number, which was a mobile. So this was a mobile phone number that became a landline. A mobile phone became a landline number, which is really interesting in and of itself. I think that basically covers it. We've discussed all the ins and outs of the Number Insight API to get up and running with it. There's a lot more to discover. So I really recommend diving into this page on our API developer portal, which will give you a good starting point to really dive in there. And there's just tons of stuff. So if you have any questions, join us on the Vonage community Slack as you're building apps that can discover information about phone numbers. It's a really powerful tool in the Vonage API's suite of tools of communications APIs. And I hope you enjoyed. I wish you the best the rest of the day and a very happy new year. Bye, everyone.